The sound that owns my nightmares isn't a scream or a gunshot. It's the dull, final thud of an industrial freezer door sealing shut, and my son's face framed in the little round window as it does. Cold air blasted my cheeks. Susan stumbled behind me. Before I could turn, I felt the shove. The door slammed. Metal boomed. I grabbed the handle, but it was already locked from the outside. "Michael," I shouted, pounding the glass with my palm. "Open this. Now." He leaned in, so close I could see the tiny scar on his chin from when he fell off his bike at 7. He lifted his phone and pressed it to the window. For words on the screen.
"Sorry, Mom.
"It's better this way." I went still. "Michael," I said, my voice thinning. "Don't you dare." He didn't hear. The door was too thick. He flicked off the hallway lights. The freezer's overheads cut to a dim emergency bulb that hummed like a dying bee. Then his face was gone. Susan's breath came out in white clouds. "Mrs. Charlotte," she whispered, her teeth already chattering. "What is happening?" "He planned this," I said, forcing my voice steady. "We have to survive it." The temperature gauge blinked 0 degrees Fahrenheit. I rubbed the inside latch with my thumb. Just a smooth plate. No emergency release. Someone had disabled it.
"Phones," I said.
My fingers were clumsy as I checked for signal. Nothing. Susan held up her screen. No bars. No hope. She started to cry small, trapped sobs. "Why would he do this to you?" she asked, voice breaking. "Because he thinks I won't fight back," I said, and the steel in my words surprised me. "Help me look." We tore through shelves with frozen hands, searching for anything: cardboard, plastic wrap, packing foam. We found a stack of boxes and a roll of bubble wrap. I dragged them to the corner under the emergency light. "Sit," I told her, breath burning my lungs. Back to back. We trapped the heat. I wrapped her in plastic and cardboard, then myself. Our shoulders touched, two shaking animals facing the same storm. The concrete leached warmth from my bones until my fingers felt like someone else's. "We have to keep moving," I said. "Stamp your feet. Wiggle your fingers. When your body wants to sleep, that's the cold lying to you." "I'm so tired," she whispered, eyelids fluttering. I nudged her with my elbow. "Tell me your grandson's birthday," I said. "Say it out loud." June 17th, she said, and I heard the thread of her life tug itself back into place. Minutes stretched like ice. I made us sing nonsense songs between coughs, anything to keep her voice present in the air. When my own lips went numb, I forced them to move. "Why are you smiling?" she asked when she caught me staring at the emergency bulb. "I'm not," I said, but I was. In the humming light, I saw Robert, leaning against a shelf, that patient smile he used when I misplaced my keys. "Not yet," he mouthed, and my throat tightened. I blinked hard until his outline faded, and the metal shelves were just metal again. "I won't die in here," I told the empty air, and then I told the truth. "I won't let him be the one who buries me." A length of loose pipe lay beside a pallet of frozen peas. I picked it up and tested the weight. "Listen," I said to Susan. "If anyone is out there, we need a language that can travel through walls." I raised the pipe and struck the shelf. 3 short taps. 3 long taps. 3 short taps. Tap, tap, tap. Pause. Tap, tap, tap. Pause. Tap, tap, tap. My hands screamed from the vibration. I did it again. And again. Between sets, we stamped our feet and breathed into our collars and cursed the man who had my son's voice. Time unspooled.
My jaw ached.
Susan tipped sideways. I tugged her upright. "Stay with me," I said, shaking her shoulder. "Look at me, Susan. Keep your eyes open." "I can't feel my hands," she whispered. "Good," I said. "They can't complain if they're not there." It was a terrible joke, and we both laughed, the broken sound of people who don't have room for tears. Tap, tap, tap. Pause. Tap tap tap. Pause. Tap tap tap. Then I heard it. Not imagination. Not the freezer's hum. The faintest scrape beyond the door. I pressed my ear to the seam. Hello. I shouted, voice ragged. In here. We're in here. The handle creaked. The door yawned open and the world rushed in. Not warmth, not really, but air that didn't bite like teeth. A woman stood there with a cleaning cart, eyes wide. Oh my God, she cried, dropping a mop. Are you alive? Help. Somebody help. I sagged against the frame. How did you find us? I asked, lips barely moving. I heard a tapping, she said. Maria, her name tag read. It wouldn't stop. I thought something was wrong. People ran. Coats slung over our shoulders. Hands under our elbows. The walk to the ambulance was an eternity of bright light and spinning sound. I climbed inside, and the medic tucked warm air around me like a blanket. Through the open doors, I saw him. Michael stood at the edge of the crowd, tie loosened, face arranged into relief. For the world, he looked like a concerned son. He stepped closer as the medic adjusted my mask. Mom, he said softly, so only I could hear. Thank God they found you. I stared at the shape of his mouth, that same mouth that had formed the words on a phone screen. He leaned in, as if to kiss my forehead. His breath warmed my ear for a second. Next time, my son whispered, gentle as prayer, there won't be a miracle.
When I woke in the ICU, my world was wrapped in wires, machines, and a suffocating fog of exhaustion. The doctors called it a miracle. I called it stubbornness. I had survived the freezer, but the real battle was just beginning. Michael stood at my bedside, smiling for the nurses. Mom, you scared us all half to death, he said, squeezing my hand like a doting son. His voice carried just enough tremble to make it convincing. But when the others stepped out, his grip tightened. He bent low until I felt his breath on my cheek. Next time, he whispered, you won't be so lucky. I kept my eyes closed and my body slack, as though too weak to respond. Inside, my chest burned. My son had locked me in a freezer and walked away. Now, he was pretending to love me while planning my funeral. Dr. Paul returned with a clipboard. Mrs. Charlotte, I need to test your memory. Do you know what day it is? I frowned, letting my eyes dart toward Michael before answering. I'm not sure. Tuesday. It's Friday, the doctor said gently, making notes. Michael let out the faintest sigh of relief. I caught it, even through the fog of my act. The doctor pressed again. Do you remember what happened to you? How you ended up in that freezer? I looked down at the blanket, feigning confusion. It's all jumbled. Just cold. Just dark. Michael's hand rested on my arm. It was an accident, he told the doctor smoothly. She wandered in while checking stock. The door must have slammed. The doctor nodded. Michael smiled, and I let them believe I was broken. Later that night, when the hallway was quiet, the nurse came in. Linda, her name tag read. Her eyes were sharp, not fooled by Michael's show. She adjusted my fore, then leaned closer. You don't look as confused as you pretend, she whispered. I swallowed hard. I remember everything, I said, keeping my voice low. My son tried to kill me. She didn't gasp. She didn't dismiss me. She simply nodded, as if she had suspected. How can I help? I need proof, I said. A recorder, a phone he can't track, and someone who believes me. The next night, Linda slipped a small device under my pillow. My boy used this in college, she said. 8 hours of recording. Battery lasts. Use it wisely. I closed my hand over it, trembling, not from weakness, but from the cold steel of resolve forming inside me. The next morning, Michael strolled in with coffee. Mom, he said cheerfully, you look stronger already. I blinked at him, feigning fog. Did we buy a lake house? I can't remember. His eyes narrowed for a moment before he masked it with a smile. Of course, Mom. We'll talk later. But I had caught that flicker, and I had the recorder running. He thought I was fragile. He thought he was safe. He had no idea that every word he dropped was being captured, every threat stored. My son believed he had buried me in confusion. What he didn't know was that I was digging his grave in silence. And soon, he would fall right into it. When the doctors finally let me sit up without oxygen tubes in my nose, I asked them for a pen. My hands trembled, but not from weakness. Every hour, every word Michael spoke, I was storing away like ammunition. Linda slipped in on her night shift, checking the monitors as if nothing was unusual. "How is our memory today?" she asked softly. I gave her a look, sharp as a knife. I whispered. She glanced at the door, then pulled a burner phone from her pocket. "Use this only when you're alone. No names in text, just initials." I closed my fingers over it. "You're risking your job." She shook her head. "I've seen men like him. People will believe the charming smile before they believe the truth. But I believe you." That night, with the lights low, I used a little phone. One text. "See, call me." Christopher, my nephew, answered within minutes. His voice cracked with relief. "Annie, I thought you were gone." "Not yet," I whispered, "and I need you more than ever." He told me he'd been digging quietly into the company files. Michael locked me out of the main systems, but I found a back door. Auntie, it's worse than we thought. Shell companies, millions drained. He even took out a life insurance policy in your name. $5 million, with him as beneficiary. My throat tightened. 3 weeks before the freezer? "Yes," Christopher said grimly. "And the signature, it isn't yours. It's forged." The next morning, David, our family's old accountant and my late husband's closest friend, called through the burner. "Charlotte, I've traced 3 offshore accounts. All roads lead back to Michael. He's bleeding the company dry." My stomach turned, but my voice stayed calm. "Then we will stop him. Patiently. Quietly." Susan, the employee who nearly froze beside me, visited in a wheelchair. She reached for my hand, her eyes watery. "Mrs. Charlotte, I need to know." "I didn't dream it, did I?" "It was him. Your son locked us in." I squeezed her fingers. "You didn't dream it. You survived it. But listen to me, Susan. You must act like you don't remember. If he suspects you know the truth, you'll be in danger again." Her lips trembled. I never thought Mr. Michael was capable of something like that. "Neither did I said, and the bitterness in my throat felt like ice. "But appearances are his armor, and we're the only ones who know what hides beneath it." That evening, Michael breezed into my hospital room with a bouquet of lilies. His smile was polished, his tone syrupy. "Mom, I've been thinking, you shouldn't go back to the city right away. I've arranged everything for you at the lake house. Quiet, private, the perfect place to recover." I feigned confusion. "Lake house? I don't remember." His jaw tightened, but his voice stayed sweet. "Of course you don't. That's the memory lapses talking. Don't worry. I'll take care of everything." I murmured, "You're so good to me," though bile rose in my throat. He kissed my forehead for the watching nurse, then whispered in my ear, "You'll be safe there. Safer than you'll ever be here." When he left, I clutched the recorder hidden in my gown. It had caught every word. He thought the lake house would be my tomb, but in truth, it would be his undoing. Because now, I wasn't just his mother. I was his shadow, watching, recording, waiting. And when the time came, the whole world would see the monster behind his smile. The day of my discharge came with a chill that had nothing to do with hospital air. Michael strolled in wearing his favorite blue suit, the one he saved for big presentations. He was all charm for the doctors. "Thank you for saving my mother," he said, shaking hands, flashing that practiced grin. But when his eyes met mine, I saw it. The flicker of calculation, measuring how long he had before he tried again. Mom, he said brightly, the car's waiting. We'll stop by the house to pick up some clothes, then head to the lake house. Everything is ready. I nodded weakly, playing confused patient. That sounds nice. Linda leaned close as she adjusted my coat. Remember, she whispered, we're tracking you. Christopher and David are behind. You're not alone. I squeezed her hand once in thanks, then let Michael lead me out like a frail woman leaning on her son. The drive began on smooth city streets, but soon the road signs disappeared. I pretended to nap, my hand tucked inside my robe where the recorder was running. Each bump on the road felt like a ticking clock. After an hour, I cracked my eyes open. No lakes, no cabins, just cornfields and gravel. I cleared my throat. Michael, this doesn't look like the way to the lake. It's a shortcut, he said, not even glancing at me. Avoids a highway traffic. His voice was calm, but his knuckles whitened on the wheel. Another 20 minutes, and we turned down a dirt road, leading to what looked like an abandoned ranch. The house sagged under years of neglect. Weeds clawed through the porch steps. Not a neighbor in sight. My stomach clenched. This isn't the lake house. Michael cut the engine and turned toward me. For the first time, he dropped the mask. His face was cold steel. Let's stop pretending, Mom. I sat very still. Pretending? He leaned closer, voice low and measured. You didn't lose your memory. I saw in your eyes when you asked about the industrial land. You remember everything, including me closing that door. The word struck like ice water down my spine. But I straightened my back, forcing my voice to stay even. You tried to kill me. Your own mother. He laughed once, sharp and humorless. Don't make this about love, Mom. It was never personal. Business is business. You've lived your life. Now it's my turn. By theft? By murder? I whispered. He shrugged. Call it strategy. No one will miss you. By the time they find your body, it will be an accident. The confused old woman wandered into an abandoned well. Tragic. My hand shook, but not from fear. The recorder in my pocket caught every word, every confession. I looked out at the broken house, then back at him for a heartbeat. I saw the boy I raised, the child who once hid behind my skirt when thunderstorms frightened him. And then he was gone. You've chosen your path, Michael, I said quietly. But so have I. Before he could reply, headlights cut across the dirt road. Not one car, several. Police cruisers, Christopher's sedan, Sheriff Thompson's truck. Engines roared closer. Michael's face drained of color. Who is that? I met his eyes and let my voice turn to ice. The witnesses to your downfall. He lunged for the ignition, but it was too late. Doors slammed, boots hit gravel, and Sheriff Thompson's voice rang out. Michael Reynolds, step out of the vehicle. Michael froze. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. And for the first time since that freezer, I allowed myself to breathe, because the trap had finally snapped shut. They pulled him from the car like he was any other criminal, though in my eyes he was still the boy I once held against my chest. Sheriff Thompson's voice cut through the night. Michael Reynolds, you're under arrest for attempted murder and financial fraud. The flashlight beams danced across his face as he tried to smirk, but the tremor in his jaw betrayed him. This is absurd, he snapped. You can't take me away based on the ramblings of a senile old woman. I pushed open my car door, leaning on the frame for strength. My voice came out clear and sharp. It's not just my word, Michael. I have recordings. Every threat, every confession, every plan you so proudly explained. He whipped his head toward me, eyes wide. You wouldn't, he said, his voice cracking for the first time. I already did, I answered. The police have everything, and tomorrow the board will too. The handcuffs clicked around his wrists. The sound was final, like a door shutting, but this time not on me, on him. Christopher rushed to my side, steadying me as my knees trembled. Andy, it's over, he said, his voice low but urgent. I shook my head. No, this is just the beginning. The next morning, the boardroom was packed. Whispers rippled when I walked in, leaning on Christopher's arm but with my head held high. The same directors who had pitted me weeks ago now looked uneasy, their eyes darting toward the door as if escape were possible. I set a thick folder on the table. My voice was steady. You've all been fed lies. Today you will see the truth. Murmurs swelled as Christopher passed out documents. Contracts, forged signatures, offshore transfers. Faces paled, hands shook. Then I held up the small recorder. And now his own words. The room went silent as Michael's voice filled the air, cold and calculated. You didn't lose your memory. You remember me closing that door. Gasps. A chair scraped. One director put his head in his hands. Another muttered, "Oh, my God!" I scanned the room, my gaze locking on the men who had signed fraudulent papers alongside my son. Some of you were his accomplices. You thought I was weak, confused, broken. You were wrong. Stephen, the consultant who had cozied up to Michael, tried to laugh. She's lying. Manipulated audio. She's delusional. Sheriff Thompson stepped through the doorway, just then, badge glinting. Not delusional. Verified. Every second of this recording has been authenticated. Arrest warrants have already been issued. Panic erupted. Security blocked the exits as police entered. Frank tried to bolt, but two officers caught him before he reached the door. Stephen's face turned the color of ash as cuffs closed around his wrists. I gripped the microphone at the head of the table. For 50 years, I built this company with my husband. We believe in honesty, in dignity, in treating every employee like family. My own son tried to destroy that legacy. But I will not let greed bury what we built. Applause broke out, not polite, but fierce. Loyal managers and employees rose to their feet, clapping until the walls shook. Some wept openly. Susan, pale but determined, was there too. She wheeled herself forward, tears streaming. "You did it, Mrs. Charlotte," she whispered. "You got justice." I bent down, clasping her hand. "No, Susan, we did it. Your courage in that freezer gave me the strength to fight." The police led the guilty away. The boardroom, once heavy with fear, now hummed with hope. I looked out over the faces. Some loyal, some ashamed, all changed. "This company will rise again," I said, my voice breaking but strong. "But it will rise on truth, not lies. On loyalty, not betrayal." The clapping grew thunderous. Yet even as I stood there, victorious, my heart ached, because justice had been served. But the price was a son I could never get back. And that wound, no court could ever heal. The trial was swift, the evidence overwhelming. The jury didn't need weeks of deliberation, only days. Michael was sentenced to 30 years for attempted murder, with another 12 added for fraud and embezzlement. I sat in the courtroom as the judge read the verdict. My hands trembled, not from triumph, but from grief. My son stood there in chains, shoulders slumped, his once proud face hollow. For a moment, I searched for the boy I raised, the boy who used to fall asleep on my lap after Sunday dinner. But he wasn't there. Only a stranger remained. Afterward, I visited him once. Just once. The prison smelled of bleach and despair. They let him in, shackled, eyes flat as stone. "Why?" I asked quietly. My voice cracked, but I held his gaze. "You would have inherited everything, Michael. In time, all of it would have been yours. Why throw it all away?" He leaned back in his chair, lips curling into a bitter smile. "Time," he repeated. "That's the problem, isn't it? You would have lived forever just to spite me. I wasn't going to wait another 20 years for my turn." I stared at him, the words slicing deeper than any knife. "Your turn?" I whispered. "You call your father's legacy crumbs? You call the company we built together crumbs?" He shrugged. "I deserve more. I deserved it now. I felt the tears sting, but I blinked them away. Then you got what you deserved. I said, standing with the weight of my 74 years, but the strength of all I had survived. And it wasn't what you thought. I walked out of that prison and never looked back. The months that followed were grueling. Auditors combed through every ledger, every contract. Loyal employees stepped up, taking on responsibilities they'd once been denied. Christopher became CFO, his sharp mind and steady heart keeping the numbers clean. David guided us through restructuring, ensuring every stolen dollar was traced and every shell company dismantled. The scandal was whispered about in church pews, at hair salons, in the aisles of the very supermarkets we owned. Poor Mrs. Charlotte, they said, betrayed by her own son. But I refused to be their pity story. I showed up to work, cane in hand, head held high. Every step through those store doors was a statement. I am not broken. I am still here. A year later, on the anniversary of the company's founding, we held a gathering. The air buzzed with nervous hope. The employees filled the hall, and for the first time in years, I saw pride on their faces instead of fear. I stood at the podium, my voice steady. This company was built on honesty, dignity, and hard work. Betrayal nearly destroyed us. But today, we stand together, stronger because we chose truth over lies. The applause rolled like thunder, and in that moment, I felt Robert's presence beside me. I imagined him smiling, proud. Later that evening, Christopher found me sitting in my office, sipping a small glass of bourbon. On the shelf above my desk sat a blue cooler, the same model as the freezer that nearly became my grave. "Andy," he said gently, "why keep that thing as a reminder?" I swirled the bourbon, watching the amber catch the light. "Because life will always try to put you back in the cold," I said. "And when it does, you need to remember that the fire inside you is stronger." He smiled, raising his glass in a silent toast. I returned it, feeling warmth spread through me. At 79, I still come to work. Not because I have to, but because I choose to. I choose resilience over ruin, dignity over despair. People often ask how I survived that freezer. The truth is simple. I refuse to let the cold win. So if you've listened this far, let me leave you with this. Life will lock you in freezers of its own. Darkness, betrayal, loneliness. But don't wait for someone else to open the door. Find the fire inside you and fight. Because survival isn't about strength. It's about never letting your flame go out. And if my story means something to you, don't forget to subscribe, share it, and tell me yours. We all carry our own battles. Sometimes, sharing them is how we keep the fire alive. By the second year after Michael's arrest, the company had steadied, but I hadn't. Outwardly, I was strong, chairing meetings, restructuring departments, reassuring employees. Inwardly, there were nights I woke up drenched in sweat, hearing the dull thud of that freezer door slamming shut. Some wounds don't heal. They harden. One evening, I sat alone in my office long after the others had gone home. The hallways were quiet, the fluorescent lights humming above. On my desk lay stacks of reports and legal papers, but my eyes were fixed on an old photograph in a silver frame. Robert holding Michael as a toddler, both smiling at me like I was their whole world. The door creaked. Susan stepped in, leaning on a cane now, her health forever marked by those hours in the cold. "Working late again, Mrs. Charlotte?" she asked softly. I smiled faintly. Old habits. The company may be safe, but I'm still afraid of letting my guard down. She pulled up a chair, her eyes kind. "You saved all of us. Don't forget that. If you had given up in that freezer, so many families would have lost everything." I reached across the desk and held her hand. "And if you hadn't stayed awake, kept me talking, I wouldn't be here either. We survived together. Susan, that bond is forever." She squeezed my fingers, her voice breaking. "But it cost you your son." The words hung heavy in the room. I swallowed, my throat tight. "Yes, and that's the price I'll carry to my grave." Justice was necessary, but it wasn't victory. It was survival. Later that week, I attended a community gathering. People whispered as they always did. But this time it wasn't pity. It was respect. An older woman approached me, trembling. "My daughter was stolen from me by greed, too," she said. "Your story, it gave me strength. Thank you." I hugged her, feeling our shared grief. That's when I realized my story was bigger than just my family or my company. It was about every person who has been betrayed by the ones they love most. So I began speaking publicly, not about the money, not about the scandal, but about resilience, about the fire that saves us when the world turns cold. I told them, don't let betrayal freeze you into silence. Use it to sharpen your will, to rise again. At home, I keep the blue cooler on my shelf. People ask why, and I tell them the reminder, not of what almost killed me, but of what saved me, my stubborn refusal to give in. Now, when I sit by the window at night, watching the lights of the city, I whisper a quiet prayer. Not for Michael, I've accepted who he became, but for every mother, every father, every betrayed soul out there fighting to keep their dignity alive. Because the truth is, we can't choose what others do to us, but we can choose what we do with the pain. And I chose to turn mine into fire. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched you, if it gave you even a spark of strength, subscribe and share it. Maybe someone you love needs to hear that even in the coldest place, the flame inside you can still burn bright. It's been 5 years now since that night in the freezer, and though time has moved forward, the scars remain. The company thrives again. Christopher leads the finances with wisdom beyond his years, and loyal employees run the stores with pride. Customers returned. Suppliers trust us, and every quarter proves that honesty can rebuild what greed tried to destroy. But at home, the silence weighs heavier than any boardroom. I walk past the empty chair at Sunday dinners where Michael should have sat. My daughter Sophia still cries when his name comes up. Daniel refuses to speak of him at all. Betrayal doesn't just shatter one bond. It ripples through every heart connected to it. Sometimes, late at night, I open the letters Michael writes from prison. He never admits guilt. Instead, he blames me. If you had trusted me, if you had stepped aside sooner, if you hadn't been so stubborn. Always if, always blame. I fold the letters neatly and lock them away. I will not let his poison seep into the life I fought to protect. Still, I visit him once a year. Not out of hope. Hope died in that freezer, but out of duty. A mother cannot forget the child she bore, even when he becomes a stranger. On my last visit, we sat across the scratch prison table. His hair had gone gray, his face lined, but his eyes still carried that same cold calculation. "You won, Mother," he said bitterly. "The company, the legacy, the applause. You always win." I looked at him steadily. "There are no winners in betrayal, Michael. Only survivors." He sneered. "You think anyone will remember you in 10 years? I leaned forward, my voice firm but soft. "Maybe not, but they'll remember the company your father and I built. They'll remember the jobs saved, the families fed, and they'll remember that when greed tried to destroy it, I stood my ground." For the first time, he had no reply. When I left the prison, the air outside felt sharper, freer. I realized then that survival isn't just about living. It's about choosing how your story will be remembered. So I tell mine not to dwell on pain, but to leave a lesson. Life will test you. Betrayal may strike from the people you love most. The cold may close in, threatening to silence you forever. But inside each of us burns a flame no freezer, no lie, no betrayal can extinguish unless we let it. I kept mine alive, and you can too. That is a legacy I leave behind, not just a company, but a truth. Even when the world turns against you, resilience can be your greatest revenge. Thank you for walking this journey with me. If my story gave you courage, subscribe, share it, and tell your own. Because together, our flames can light the darkest nights.